Country Liberals MLA Dave Tollner is back on the opposition front bench. He was demoted to the backbench last year as punishment for challenging Terry Mills for the party's leadership. And in the week of his promotion, he's making his presence felt, delivering a scathing spray on life in remote communities, claiming he too would be eager to sniff petrol if he grew up in one. I spoke to Dave Tollner earlier today. Dave Tollner, welcome to the program.
Great to be with you.
You're back on the front bench. How has that come about? Did Terry Mills make you an offer that would guarantee your support of him as the leader of the party?
Fundamentally, Terry Mills offered me the positions of business and employment and lands and planning, and I was happy to accept that.
Can you rule out another leadership challenge before the next election?
I've no desire to challenge Terry before the next election at all, or even after, for that matter.
Do you think he has what it takes to be the next Chief Minister?
Look, I think Terry Mills will make a great Chief Minister. He's a decent man, he's honest, hard-working, and I tell you what, he's a hell of a lot better than what we've currently got.
Your challenge to the leadership has been somewhat of a blessing to the government because they've used your leadership aspirations against the CLP.
Well, some might see it that way. Look, I think in a lot of ways it's been good for the party. We've had to get some things out of the way, sorted out. There's been some changes made. We're a much more formidable outfit now than we have been in the past.
Yeah. You've said this week in reference to remote communities, if I was brought up in one of those joints, I couldn't wait to get my hands on a can of full-strength unleaded petrol. I would be sniffing away. I'd probably neck myself. Do you think you really know what life is like in these remote communities?
I've done a lot of travelling around remote Northern Territory. I've been into communities in the south, in the north, in the east and the west. And I have to tell you that the livable communities are far and few between. And anybody who thinks that life is fun on these remote communities really needs to get out and have a look. The fact is, life isn't fun. There's not too much to enjoy in these remote communities. My argument in the Parliament this week is that governments across Australia, not just the Northern Territory government but the federal government as well, are throwing money hand over fist at remote communities, and things are just getting worse. Things need to change. Anybody who says that things don't need to change clearly doesn't know what they're talking about.
But don't you think that message has got lost there because of the language that you used?
Well, I don't think people are getting the message. The fact is that these places are hellholes, and we actually have to start treating them like hellholes. In the last term of the Howard government, they had a big wake-up call with the Little Children of Sacred report, and an intervention took place. Now, Labor, whilst they said they support that intervention, really have watered it down to such an extent that now it's just jobs for the boys, money for the gravy train, but very little is changing on the ground, and in actual fact things are getting a hell of a lot worse.
But those comments, I mean, how is that value adding to this debate in a positive sense by using comments that have been described as offensive and unhelpful?
Well, I don't know who finds that offensive. Look, the fact is...
Well, Aboriginal people would in these communities.
Aboriginal people communities are racked by substance abuse. You have to ask why they're racked by substance abuse. The fact is that there's nothing going on in these places, absolutely nothing. And as I said, if I was growing up in a situation like that, I could well see myself going down that path. If some people are horrified by that, well, too bad.
But by using these words, I couldn't wait to get my hands on some full-strength unleaded petrol, what message are you sending to young people who are facing choices about their lives?
Well, what sort of a choice is it to grow up in these communities, Louisa? Honestly, would you want to grow up in a place like that? I find the whole idea that kids are growing up in these places horrific. I'm completely put out by it. And I can completely understand why people turn to substance abuse when they're growing up in communities like this. The Australian government or Australian governments are spending $100,000 per person, per man, woman and child in these remote communities, and you look at the diabolical situations that they're growing up in. The sooner we bite the bullet, tell it how it is and actually act, the better.
What kind of action do you think is required then?
Well, there's a whole range of action. The fact is that nowhere, practically nowhere on Aboriginal land in the Northern Territory do we find the least skerrick of private enterprise. There's nothing. There's no butcher shops, there's no bakeries, there's no clothing stores, there's no hairdressers, there's no cinema, there's no 10-pin bowling outlet, there's nothing. No skerrick of private enterprise. So one of the first things we do need to do is sort out private ownership of land on these communities. Aboriginal people should be able to own their own house. It is just wrong that government supplies everything in these communities.
Amnesty International has released a study looking at 1,400 people living in 16 outstations, showing that they are in fact living a healthier and happier life. But what you're saying would suggest that that's not correct.
Well, the fact is that there's a 96% failure rate at school. How living in an outstation is going to help somebody at school, I don't know. The fact is we've got to get kids to school, we've got to get parents working, and we've got to get private investment to occur in some of these townships. That's the only way we're going to fix the problem.
Dave Tollner, thanks for talking with us.
My pleasure.